Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plan B Success. We have Gary Buckmann with us today, and he's from California. He's a speaker, executive coach, and an author. But before all that, Gary was a top-level gymnast. And then, while he was pursuing his career, something happened that left him paralyzed in bed with a broken neck. And he was told that he could never move, never walk again. But over the next 3 years, there are things that Gary did that put him back on his feet. And then he went on to work with about 5 top-level gymnasts and take them to the Olympics, and they're all gold medalists too, I hear. And after that, he's written a book, actually. That's what we're going to talk about today. And his book is about his experiences and what worked for him. Broken to Brilliant is what it's called. So having said that, let's welcome Gary and we'll get started. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Arjit. Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, absolute pleasure having you. So tell us about your story. You were a gymnast and what happened?
Well, in college, one day at practice on the vaulting event, the long horse vaulting event, I was flying down the runway and I took off on the wrong foot and instantly knew I was in trouble. So I made a snap decision to kick out of the vault. It was a multiple flipping vault, thinking it was a great decision. And the next thing I knew, I was about 1.5 feet off the ground going head first for the mat. And I landed square on top of my head from about 8.5 feet in the air, knocked me completely out. And when I regained consciousness, my neck was broken and I couldn't feel anything from the neck down. And, after that, I got some feeling back. I had a lot of pain and a lot of, things, but my arms were instantly paralyzed and gone. And the trainer actually had me walk out of the gym on my own power that day, which seems kind of crazy. And while I was at the doctor's office, I lost my left leg. And then they took me to the hospital and put me in traction. While I was in the hospital, the doctors came in after a few weeks and said, you're not responding to any of the treatments. And so this is how you're going to be the rest of your life. And I said, no, I don't think so, doc. That's not my plan. I have another plan for my life. So that's kind of how the injury went.
And then what happened over the next couple of years? How did you get back to being able to walk again and all that?
Well, that's a great question. Being a gymnast and all, I used visualization to see myself going through my routines all the time. So that's what I started to do right away when I was laying flat on my back 24/7. I started visualizing myself back to normal, back in school, back with my friends, back at the gym, back working out. And I also got very specific. I even saw the nerve impulses going from my brain, through the neural pathways back to making my muscles work. And within a few weeks, I got my leg back, which they thought was a miracle. And then within another week or so, I got released because they said there was nothing they could do for me. And so what I did was I went home with my teammates. We all lived in a team house together. And my teammates were now my nursemaids. They took care of me. And, if you can imagine a bunch of 20-year-olds living together in a house, it was pretty crazy. And it was nice because their 20-year-old mentality was the exact medicine that I needed. They were positive and upbeat. And they also, gave me tough love when I needed it. When I was down and out, they would say, hey, we're not putting up with this. Get back in the game here, buddy. And so they nursed me back. And after a while, I had stopped going to the doctors because I got tired of hearing the negative news every time I went. And lots of times he canceled my appointments because he was a neurosurgeon. He was an orthopedic surgeon. And so I stopped going to the doctors for months. And then, and I was in constant pain all the time, because my back muscles spasm to protect the spinal cord. And so one day I woke up, like I said, in late August, early September, and the pain was gone. And I thought, oh my gosh, what is this? Because I'd forgotten about that. And so I thought, this is great. I took it in for a little bit, and then I thought, well, I better call the doctor and go back and see what's up. And So I went back in and had a doctor's appointment. And of course, he was furious with me. He hadn't seen me in months. And he wasn't, his bedside manner was more like, where the heck have you been? And how do you expect me to take care of you if you don't show up and all these things? And I said, well, he says, where have you been? I said, I've been out healing myself, doc. I've been taking care of myself. And he says, well, we need to take x-rays. And I said, okay, great, go ahead. And I'm thinking, like, take your stupid x-rays. I'm healing. I'm doing well. And he comes back in, and first thing he says is, you need an operation immediately. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And he goes, okay, come over here. And he puts the x-rays up in the machine. And, and I'm a physical education major, so I've taken anatomy. I know what a normal spinal, vertebrae column looks like. And the vertebrae, and the initial injury was a compression fracture where it, disintegrated the disc between the vertebrae and cracked the vertebrae in half, but it also subluxed. And so I'm looking at this x-ray, and the vertebrae are lined up like this, way off. The vertebrae is still cracked in half. And now there's a big bone spur growing out the front of one of my vertebrae where the body was trying to heal itself. And he looked at me and he says, do you know how much a millimeter or two is? And I said, yeah. And he says, well, that's what it's hanging on by. He said, someone could come up, slap you on the back to say, hey, Gary, how you doing? That thing could slip off, cut your cord. You're either going to die or you're going to be a quadriplegic for the rest of your life. So he says, you need an operation immediately. And so I had to go in and get an operation where they took a bone chip out of my hip and fused my 6th and 7th vertebrae together. I had to wear a neck brace for 6 months to let it grow together. And during that time, while I was, going through all that, I got the feeling in my arms back. And so I started rehabbing little by little, and little by little, I got back into the sport of gymnastics. And then when the bone completely fused together and I was cleared, I started competing again, little at a time. And then by 1974-75 season, I was back full all the way back, doing all 6 events again, and had the best year of my life in 74-75.
That's pretty amazing, Gary. That's actually quite a fast turnaround, a couple of years. From being a really active athlete to kind of going through this accident, what was the dark period, or what was some of those those dark times that you faced, and how did you tackle with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Immediately, when he gave me the news, I remember telling the nurses not to let anybody in to see me for a whole day, that I just wanted to deal with all of the emotions and the inner mind chatter that was going through, my life's over, is anybody ever going to love me? What are my parents going to think? I'm like, can I finish school? I'll never be able to take care of myself. I'll never be able to drive a car. I don't, if I was lucky enough to meet somebody, I wouldn't be able to, hold my baby in my arms, or all these kind of things were going crazy. And so anyway, I took a whole day, being an athlete, I guess, and there's no timetable to this. It could have been a week, a month, a year, 2 years, whatever it is to take, but you want to deal with all those emotions. So that's what I immediately did. And then the whole thing is, we never do anything in life alone. And I had this amazing support group who were my teammates and also my friends. We all lived together, like I said, in a team house. And they were there every day. And I think back on it now, they were in school, they were competing, but they somehow had somebody there every day. And then, making that decision for myself to heal myself, the universe lined up this amazing roommate that I had. His name was Earl. And he was, there was a divider in our room, and he was 70 plus, and he was in there for a hip replacement. And that guy was a godsend. He talked to me every day, all day long about life. And I asked him all these questions, and I learned so much in the time I was in the hospital with him. So it was like, he helped me through. And then when I, like I said, when I got out and went home, my teammates helped me through. And, there were a lot of dark times because, over the months of trying to just, make my arms move, I would sit in my room every night, and I could swing my arms from my shoulders. They would flop all over this, and I would flop one of my hands up into my lap every night. And I would just sit there and, like, come on, move, 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 move. And I just wanted to open my fingers, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. you know, so I just had to keep the faith. And I think another thing is, a big thing is my upbringing. My mother was a great influence on me. She was all of 4'11" and 90 pounds, but she was this tough Iowa farm girl who was tenacious. And she always told me you could do anything you want when you put your mind to it. And she always reminded me that dynamite came in small packages. So I think the influence of my mother, and then also listening, to my internal voice, and I was 20 at the time. I really didn't know what that was, but I could feel inside something that said, you can do this. You can heal yourself. You don't have to take this prognosis and diagnosis of what the doctor said. You can go ahead and do what you want to do. And I think the combination of all of those things got me through the dark times.
And once after 3 years, once you got your motion back and you started going back into a more of a normal life, how was the evolution after that for you? How did you from, becoming active to becoming a coach actually?
Yeah, I started coaching when I was in high school. My mentor and coach in high school had started a private club on the side, and he hired me when I was 16 years old. He saw something in me, which I'm so grateful for, I guess, as a teacher. And I started coaching him when I was in high school, and I fell in love with it. And so I knew immediately that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to go into the private club business and coach, because kids were coming there to learn exactly what I was teaching. And so when I got into the coaching field after my accident, the accident really spurred me on to create a program that would develop total body awareness for my athletes so that they would never, ever get hurt like I did. And it was, and that program is what actually allowed me to further my career, because, my kids had so much success, in competition, that they asked me to be on the USA coaching staff. And then I got to travel around the world with the USA team. And it was just amazing. And it all stemmed, from the broken neck. I used to tell people, and they always think it sounds funny to look at me sideways most of the time, but I think, breaking my neck was probably the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, because I was actually going down the wrong road in college. To give you a little background, when I was in high school in gymnastics, it wasn't really accepted as a sport. Nobody came to watch us. People said that, we weren't really athletes. But when I got into college, it was like the number one sport in my college at Chico State University. And, thousands of people came to watch us. And so instantly I became a big man on campus, and my head exploded and my ego went crazy. And, and if I would have kept going down that road, I would have done not good things, I don't think. So, breaking my neck was a good thing for me. And that's how I got through it all. And that's what inspired me into my coaching career.
Tell us about your experience training, Olympic athletes.
Oh, that was such a gift. When I was on the USA coaching staff, and, when I got to travel with the team, I got to travel with the men's and women's team lots of times. And I actually got to take Mary Lou Retton, who was the gold medal winner in '84, on her very first international trip when she was 12 years old. We went to Canada for a 5-country meet. And, it's amazing, Raji. The elite athletes, they really know who they are. They are not all boastful and full of themselves. They just know who they are as human beings, and they let their actions speak for them. They're wonderful human beings, and they're a delight to work with. And I was fortunate enough, to travel with like Peter Vidmar and Tim Daggett and, Mitch Gaylord, who became Olympic gold medal winners, to Japan and things, and Mary Lou Retton. And then in where I had my, gym in San Ramon, in the next city over in Dublin, was an ice skating rink, and Brian Boitano trained in that ice skating rink. And so for the '88 Olympics, his coach wanted him to learn a backflip on the ice because that was the year of the War of the Bryans, Brian Orser from Canada and Brian Boitano from the United States. And they would have a free skate afterwards. So like 6 months before the Olympic Games, she brought him into the gym and I started working with him on backflips. And to tell you, I was very, very nervous because I thought, oh my gosh, I do not want to drop this guy and wreck his chances for becoming an Olympic gold medal winner. But it was a joy working with him. And so it was just a pleasure to work with these athletes.
How long did you serve as a coach?
I was on the coaching staff from 1981 to 1984. Yeah.
Okay. And then what did you do with your career after that?
Oh, well, I coached all the way until 2014, and then finally, kind of retired from the sport. I trained both men and women gymnasts over those years. And one of the biggest joys was having a lot of my national and elite athletes. They all got like full ride scholarships to major universities all over the United States. So that was kind of nice because it made it worth their while for their parents to, they paid me their dues all those years, and then they got to go to school for free. So it was great. And one of the things is, and one of the things like that I talk about in the book, was that the greatest compliment I ever got as a coach came to me in a grocery store while I was shopping. One of my parents of a and it wasn't one of my national or elite athletes. It was one of my beginning competitors' parents. Said that that everything that I taught her daughter in gymnastics was the reason that she was so successful in college. And she was saying that she was at UCLA and she was the president of her sorority and she had a double major. And she was getting straight A's and she was having the time of her life. It was all the things that I taught her in gymnastics. And I thought, wow, I don't remember all of that on the curriculum, And then she says, yeah, she learned about goal setting and conflict resolution and time management and all these things that you need in life, And it kind of hit me, like, oh my gosh, like, all the things that I taught, it wasn't about the winning and losing and the medals and all that thing. It was about all the things that were happening during the process of learning that were making these kids go out and be successful in life.
And when did you write this book, Broken to Brilliant?
Well, I started writing it a way long time ago. I started writing stories down actually back in year 2000, just because, my wife encouraged me to write these stories down because I was telling her to them. And then I seriously got to work, I let it go by the wayside for many, many years. And then I seriously got to work in 2018. And then and I kind of did it again a little on the side. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I had a lot of time on my hands and I actually hired a coach in 2019, a writing coach, and I got serious about it. And during that time between 2019 and 2020, I finished the book and it came out on March 12th of this year. And I'm super excited.
Absolutely. So tell us, what can readers find in the book?
Well, it's centered around my injury, the broken neck and recovery, but it's a memoir of my life. And it goes all the way from childhood all the way through until current day. And what I like about it is it during the writing process, I learned a lot from myself, and it was a good healing for myself also. But it gives you a new perspective of, what I really want people to get out of this book is looking at life from a whole new perspective and connecting the dots of our life. Like what I learned during that time, and, a lot of people have said this to me over my lifetime, is like, life doesn't happen to us. Life happens for us. If we're aware and see, the gift in things that happen. And a lot of the so-called bad things that happen to us in our life are actually the catalysts that spring us into the good things in our life. And what I did for myself is I connected the dots of my life. And that's what I want people to do when they read the book, is to take, the experiences of their life and look at it. One of the best examples I can give you is like, we blame a lot of things on people for why our life is like they are. And one of the things I did was I blamed my dad for the way he taught me, and he was a great dad, and he taught me so many things. And he was teaching me all these things, over projects around the house, when I was a kid. And I didn't realize that, he had to get things done. So he would be teaching me, and then he would say, hey, I need a tool. And he'd send me off to get a tool. And then I'd come back and he'd finish the job. So as a little kid, that screamed loud and clear to me, like, oh, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not talented enough. He took it away. And, he never said anything. He just did it. And so I got angry all the time. I got upset. So, I blamed my dad for, making me feel like I wasn't smart enough or good enough for things in life. And then one day, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was sitting in my kitchen and it hit me like a ton of bricks, like, oh my gosh, it's one of those aha moments. Like, if my dad hadn't taught me the way he did, I wouldn't have coached the way I did, and I wouldn't. So I actually went outside that day and had a conversation with my dad and said, thank you, Dad. Thank you for teaching me the way you did. Thank you for everything. And it was just a great experience. So that's what I kind of want people to do is to be able to, connect the dots of their life. They don't have to be an athlete or break your neck, just take your experiences and build off of them and see what you can come up with a new perspective and how things really are lining up for you. And there is opportunities out there for you that you might be missing.
Absolutely. And where do people find this book?
They can go to brokentobrilliant.com, and that'll take them right to the link where they can purchase it. And if they want to get a hold of me, they can go to Gary Buckmann, and that's BuckMann.com. So GaryBuckmann.com is my website.
So I see that you're also into speaking and executive coaching. How long have you been doing that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been doing that for the last few years, and I'm getting ready, and I'm very excited to combine my efforts with my wife because she's an amazing human being. And we're going to try to put together workshops that will help people realize just how amazing they are and what they're, and how to reach their full potential in any area of their life. And we're getting ready to launch that, this year, and we're very excited.
And the best way people can reach you is through your website, I believe?
Yes, you can get me through my website, GaryBuckmann.com.
Awesome. Well, Gary, it's been a pleasure talking to you, learning about your life and your times. And absolutely, your book seems fantastic, something that we should check out. We hear so many stories where we have epiphanies in life and then they put us on a different path. It's amazing to hear your story. You had such a life-threatening disease, not a disease, but a life-threatening situation. But you took it into your own hands and came out successful. And in fact, went on to build your life much better after it.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that I want everybody to know is that, I'm not some superhuman being or anything, I'm just a normal everyday person like all of us. And we all have this capability inside of us because we have that internal knowledge and we have this mind of ours that can work to help that, create anything that we want and do anything that we want. So, it's like I always say, if I can do it, you can do it.
Absolutely. We are in these pandemic times right now, and everybody's having their own struggle, whether it's fighting COVID or, some of their family members fighting COVID, or whether they've lost a job and things like those. What would be the one thing that you would want to say to people so that, they stay on top of their game, irrespective of the challenges and the odds that they face?
I think the best thing that they can do, and it's not an easy thing, it's the best thing I can think to do. It's not easy though, is to actually sit back, and take yourself out of the situation and try to see the gift in this situation. And sometimes that is so hard to do, but inevitably there's always a gift. There is something there that's there for you. You're not going through this challenge for no reason. You're going through it to expand yourself and move forward, but don't let it beat you down. Say, why, you don't have to ask why, but just say, what is the gift in this situation? And when you can recognize that, it gives you a whole new perspective and allows you to take steps forward onto the path you're supposed to be on.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Gary. Thank you for sharing your message. I'm sure the listeners will check out the book and hope to keep in touch. And all the best with your courses and inspirational workshops.
Well, thank you so much, Raji, and thank you for having me. And thanks for all the great work you're doing in the world. Plan B is a great idea. We all need Plan B.
Thank you.